Yeah, alright, hey guys, what's going on? Here's the next one that I wanted to do. This is on the Northern Perspective channel, and I'm going to do a clip from here, which is going to be just beautiful.
Stupefying. Shocking. It's not a funny fiscal outlook. It's a really serious fiscal outlook. And we don't lightly use the word unsustainable. Unsustainable means you don't have the option of saying, maybe I'll wait a couple of years, I'll see how things go. It means if you don't change, this is done.
That's serious, guys. Like, listen to that wording. Unsustainable. This means if it doesn't change, you're done. Holy God. It's crazy, eh? It's insane. It's insane.
No wonder Mark Carney bolted for another photo op trip. While he was smiling for cameras abroad, his own parliamentary budget officer dropped a nuclear bomb on the Liberal narrative, shredding, absolutely shredding the myth that Carney is some sort of financial genius and exposing the truth. This government hasn't changed its spending habits one bit. In fact,
It's gotten
Canada's
worse.
fiscal path is now headed straight for oblivion. Let's take a look.
Headed straight for oblivion. Fuck. Oh, see this fucking happen. What do we do it for? Why? In a country with leaders that don't love the country.
Figure one of your report. You
It's
know
them. They always say, "Well, the leaders are upset that the conservatives don't love build this country because they complain about it." But no, the reality is that you guys have nuked this country at every turn. You guys fucking have destroyed the country. You don't care about our citizens. You want us all to fucking be just swarmed and swarmed and swarmed by immigrants and everything else, and you want to deem us racist when we say something about it.
longer predict
Not to mention the other messes.
the debt to GDP ratio improving. In fact, it would appear that what was once a fiscal anchor has now been abandoned by this Prime Minister and his government. As your report indicates, the debt to GDP increasing to a clearly alarming rate of 42.5%.
Whoa, the debt to GDP ratio increasing at an alarming rate of 42.5%, only almost half a percent, half, like 50, half, almost half percentage already, like, or not already, but like that's just an insanely high. Like the debt to GDP ratio is almost 50 fucking percent. That's insane. That's not good at all.
So my questions are these. Is this sustainable? At
It's
what
8%
point
more.
does it hit a critical point?
That's pretty
And
fucking
should
close to critical.
Canadians be concerned?
To answer,
It's
I think,
gotta
the
be
most important
critical
part of the
now,
question
right?
first, I think everybody should be concerned.
Yeah.
My jokes aside, it's a really serious day, right? This is the
Yeah.
first time in 30 years that we've tabled an economic and fiscal outlook where the fiscal anchor of the general and probably most important fiscal anchor for any government is a declining or at least stable debt to GDP ratio. And this is the first time in 30 years that I've seen one in which that ratio is going up over time. So that's definitely a cause for concern. Certainly on our end, we're hoping and certainly expecting the government, as part of Budget 2025, to clearly indicate what the government plans to do to address this and potentially address this problem, because it's certainly not sustainable.
They're not gonna
Ladies
do a
and
damn
gentlemen, that
thing.
is Jason
They're literally not gonna do a damn thing.
Jake. He is the interim parliamentary budget officer, and he's worked in the parliamentary budget office for 17 years.
Jesus,
So
fuck.
this isn't some new guy that has come in and doesn't really know the ropes. He's prepared report after report. He's been involved in it. He's seen it. He's seen conservative governments. He's seen the Liberal government.
This is brutal.
And if you recall, one of the things that Chrystia Freeland kept crowing about in the last parliament to try to, combat the narrative from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives that they were leading Canada down a very dangerous financial path was, we have a great debt to GDP ratio. We have a AAA credit rating.
Lowest debt to GDP ratio.
Lowest
No,
debt to
it's
GDP ratio.
it's
Lowest
basically
debt to
highest.
GDP ratio. Lowest debt to GDP ratio. Lowest debt
That's
to
horrible.
GDP ratio.
Lowest debt to GDP ratio.
Bullshit.
Debt to GDP ratio.
Well, now the PBO is saying your debt to GDP ratio is going up. That means, folks, the amount of debt that the country is carrying is growing. So the ratio
Significantly.
between that and the actual gross domestic product, the amount we basically produce, that is getting, that
Smaller.
is shrinking.
Yeah.
So the amount of debt that we're getting is getting
growing.
closer to the amount that we actually produce. That is very, very problematic for any nation, never mind Canada. And the fact that he says we haven't seen this in over 30 years, that means that we haven't seen this since the
Horrendous.
mid-90s, which was a big, big, big problem for Canada, for those who remember. So he's not mincing any words. This is a concern. This is not a conservative, folks. This is someone who works in the Parliamentary Budget Office for the Liberal government.
Do you think it's important to take a look at Table 2 here?
Holy fuck, man.
And for people back home, as of 2024-25, the public debt charges is $53.6 billion, and that projection is going to increase to in 2030 to $82.4 billion. Is that sustainable?
So before we get his answer, folks, and for those playing the home game, this is Table 2 from the Parliamentary Budget Office report. So what is he talking about? He is talking about line 3 there, where it says public debt charges, $53.6 billion. And if you move all the way to the right, the estimate by 2030-31 is that is going to increase
So
to
almost
$82.4
basically
billion.
directly 30
Now,
billion.
what does that mean? We all hear about debt service charges. What is that? So when you and I take out a loan, we take out a loan from the bank, and what ends up happening is that we take out that money and then we get charged interest on that, right? Right. So we
Same
pay
as
interest
credit
every month.
card or whatever.
Now, this is a little different. When the government borrows money, it doesn't
pay.
really borrow money from the Bank of Canada per se. What it does is it goes to the Bank of Canada and says, hey, we need
We
money.
need extra money.
So what the Bank of Canada does is the Bank of Canada prepares bonds, and it sells those bonds to financial institutions and investors. So most of those bonds end up going to the Canadian banks like RBC and Scotia and the rest of them. So the banks buy the bonds, that brings the money in, and in most cases the banks are creating money out of thin air. They're printing money to actually raise the capital for that, and then that goes to the Bank of Canada, which then gets transferred to the Government of Canada. Fine. So what's this debt service charge? Well, why do these banks buy these bonds? They wouldn't buy them if it wasn't in their best interest, right? Right. So what ends up happening is the government actually...
Sorry, guys. But this is important. That's why I'm not interrupting.
gives an interest payment or almost
A lot of people really don't know how fundamentally economies work, and this is a big essential part of it.
almost like a dividend payment to these financial institutions. So you get paid that interest